shows for kids only in schools. So you are doing a show in school with your actors, with everything, from this money from Instytut Teatralny. And then you are making a tour in each school that, you know, it can contract you. So this is our, you know, like always full. Yeah, because, you know, the eclectic repertoire, when you've got 2 shows for kids and 1 comedy, it's always good because it gives you the higher levels of frequency of the audience. And we've got, you know, like only shows for kids now, but really we don't like to be tied up by this topic. Now we want to do our things, we want to do great shows, and I think this is like a conversation we need to have about the legislation as well. That the audience and you know, like how many people comes shouldn't be really the measuring for us if we are doing good or we are doing bad stuff, because it really doesn't show anything. It only shows that 73% of people came this weekend, which is nothing. You know, that gives you nothing. In Germany, there is none of these you know, problems because they don't care. And they've got full houses, doing experiments, doing you know, some crazy stuff, and yet we are tied up by this problem.
It's the market economy logic, and actually, I guess that in Poland you're quite sensitive towards these rules or numbers which you must fulfill. Also, thanks to the activity called theater is not a product and spectator is not a client. So maybe you can say something more about this activity.
Yeah, this was this action in 2012 that the theater is not a product and the audience is not a customer, which I partly only agree on this. But yeah, the main reason was, I guess this was the time when the legislation was going crazy and they really wanted to tie it up even higher levels of the frequency and, you know, the whole theater in Poland, you know, like how many are we? 5,000 people, like said no to this. I don't know. Yeah, this is the letter from the people of theater, and yeah, it's about, you know, the cuttings of budgets and everything and so on and so on. So this action showed that yeah, this is a problem for us. That when someone imposes you the measures and you need to fit in it, then you start to think artistically about your venue, and this is, you know, like suicide, you know, like shooting your own head off. And well, what showed this action is that really no one cares. Yeah, this was like what happened. It's that nothing happened really. We've got the same legislation now. Well, maybe in 1 year there's gonna be some changes in January, but still we are, you know, like our organizer is always asking us for a frequency, and we are talking, we've got this action and we've got this action, and we are meeting people, we've got readings, and we are gathering people for some conversation and so on and so on, and they're asking, okay, but frequency, and this is all. And when I said that I'm only partially agreed with this, it's because I think that theater is a product, because we are producing something. But our audience is not a customer, it's a participant in this product. So what we need to do is to think how to, you know, how to count this value, this participation. It's uncountable, so we need to find another measure to do so.
There are measures how to measure social impact of
yeah, but they're, you know, like long distance always.
It's very complicated also for the politicians to understand.
And the politicians, they are only for 4 years on top, so 4 years for them, it's like, you know, the whole time they've got. And we are talking about, you know, measuring things for 50 years. So for them, it's unimaginable.
Thank you. But I imagine that your audience is quite broad, that you have many like age groups, profession groups, etc., etc. But you mentioned yesterday that you are focusing on women as one of your topics. Could you maybe say more about this? Why women? Is it a burning problem of your city or of your region or in Hungary?
I think it's not only my Maybe through an example would be more understandable. We organize each year the Deska Festival. It's a platform for Hungarian contemporary plays. So performances based on Hungarian contemporary plays. And there is, this is not a competitive festival, but there is there are invited guests, and the day after the performance we have talking about the performance. When we think and discuss who we should invite to start the conversation about the performance. And even I, when I think of persons, then the man's name are coming first, and I have to be very self-aware to know that there are a lot of women who are writing drama, or but as I see in Hungary, from this experience, playwrights are more men, and dramaturgs are mainly women, or I don't know. So this kind of how we were also raised, but how we are used. This is yes, I think it's just self-awareness, and we have to think all the time that, so we have to consider that this problem exists. And this festival we started last year. It's Debrecen has had a writer, Szabó Magda, and last year it was the anniversary of her 100th birthday. So we invited performances based on her plays, mainly, but then it came this idea that we could widen this festival to focus on mainly on women artists and women issues, like giving birth, or yes, women in science, art, and so on.
So the reason why you chose this topic is a combination of some internal need or maybe personal need, combined also with some local aspects or history of independence.
Yes, sort of. And we also have a performance. It's a kind of documentary, but one of our actresses was pregnant, and she made a performance during her pregnancy and about her pregnancy. And then she played the performance until the point where she could not play it anymore, because physically it was the time there. So yes, I think these are things we have to talk about, and it's also interesting to talk about. It's our daily life.
Thank you. My last question or topic I would like to propose tackles the third part of the triangle: theater audience, or public theater audience, and the administrator, or the public administration, which establishes the theater. So I would like to ask you, maybe how much conscience do you have while planning your artistic programs about some political or political topics? How far do you observe it? How far are you pushed to follow what is proclaimed in these very theoretical texts published by governments and ministries of culture, if it is something what is of interest to you. And I would quote here Pavel Lisak from an interview made by Jan Jiřík for our magazine Svět a Divadlo, World and Theatre, where he said that the only thing what belongs to me is the idea. For the rest, I am hired by the city, by the region, by the state, by the institution I work for. So I would like to ask you if you feel some commitment also with through the authorities and with the political statements in your theater, or is it something what you totally ignore in your daily work? You start with Lucia?
We know not ignore it, but we are free in our work, and also our government, self-government and administrator is so-called theater positive. But it's a new situation in our region. So we think a lot of problems will solved, and I think it is very helpful to communicate with men like him, because we really need a relationship between our self-government and theater, and till now it was really bad or unfunctional.
What does it mean practically, that it was unfunctional?
That last directory of our theater, it were people our last directory, so theater director and artistic director were on their positions over 30 years, so it's quite long. And our administrator of self-government was their friend. So everything what he wanted from theater, some ceremonies or some performances also, they did. Now we have a new self-government administrator and also new directory, and I think our problems will change to something much more positive, and we can go forward.
So you are in lucky situation. It's
now yes,
the public administration is supportive for your theater.
Yes, but this situation I'm talking about, it's from this September.
Yeah,
it's absolutely new situation.
So you will tell us maybe in 2 years how you succeeded with them. Matěj, how is the situation in Brno? What is your relation with the city, and what's your commitment towards the city?
Yeah, it was said here that if I'm employee of the city theater or kind of city theater, so I'm hired to do something. So this is a question: what is the demand from city to us? Yeah. And okay, I started to talk about it in the first answer, that we are part of this Center for Experimental Theatre. Yeah? And so there's okay, it means that we should be free in our creation in terms that it should be experimental. Yeah? Okay, we should not do some classical genre of production. We should experiment. Yeah? It's still like this circle. So I will say something. When our artistic director Ivan Buray was chosen to be the new artistic director 3 years ago, so he was chosen with the concrete program, which was reading this demand for experimenting in terms of to do this kind of progressive theater, and it means that okay, it's like this engaged theater, politically engaged, or it's using new media methods and whatever what we can see in European theater. So, and he was chosen with this program of non-classical theater production, and also in his concept was written and said and presented that he wants to extend the program to do these discussions and the other stuff. So it should be like we should feel free to fill this program. And that's right, that from the city side or from the politics, we don't feel any pressure or even censorship for this program in this idea way. The only kind of censorship which can be there, it's the economic censorship, or some people they can say that it's kind of economic censorship. Because for this kind of program which Ivan wanted to do, to create here, it was clear that he needs to have bigger budget, and especially in the second and third year, because in his concept he presented the concrete way how to, like the first season, just do only one more financially important project, or in second and third it will be more and more difficult. That in this concept there was this demand from artistic director that he needs to have bigger project, especially in a bigger budget, especially in the third and fourth year of this creation concept. There is one mistake in communication between the Centrum of Experimental Theatre and the politics of city, because yeah, we don't have bigger budget, yeah? And if city allowed Ivan, artistic director, to do this concept, so it's clear, like they don't help him in the financial way. And now we are in state that we are still trying to fill our concept and do whatever we are able in our budget, which is now in kind of crisis. And we don't see future for next year. Yeah? If we should change the concept, we should do minimalistic concepts of minimalistic and really it's not only about the set design, but also about the number of collaborators or even a number of premieres. And it's happening.
But do I understand correctly, still you are required by the city to fulfill the artistic program, although the city doesn't give you enough support for that?
Like we feel it that the city like is not discussing much about this problem, and maybe like we can say that they are not supporting us, but they are not even discussing about the needs of supporting. Yeah? And this is one of the like border between Divadlo and the concrete politics sphere, that we are under the director of Centrum of Experimental Theatre, and like we ourselves, like we should not discuss with politics, because this is the position of director.
Okay, it's the hierarchy of the
this
institution.
Kind of,
maybe you are too much institutionalized.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
That's the problem, probably.
This is the problem.
Yeah. Thank you, Tomáš. How is the situation in Velký?
Well, the first thing what I want to say is that thankfully Wałbrzych is very far away. It's 1 hour going by train from Wrocław, where our administration heads are. So they are not coming to the theater, obviously. And this helps a lot because we've got no problems with them. We've got a positive budget which is unchangeable, and this is, but I think it's in every country of ours, it's the biggest problem, that we are underestimated a lot. We need a lot of money, more money to have basic needs, like the toilet paper in toilets. But whatever. What I'm thinking about is, when you ask about the responsibilities for the theater, I think that as an institution and everybody that works there in Żaniawski, we're trying to be a shield for the artists, that, our administration isn't coming, but if they come, then we are meeting with them, we are not letting them to touch the artists, to stop their expression. We are never imposing any censorship to our artists. So this is our part in this triangle, And our audience is helping us because they are not sending any, blackmailing things to administration, which helps. But yet, I guess this is going to change. Well, maybe tomorrow we'll see that our administration will come to our theater to see what we are doing there, and they are just going to, ask us to leave.
My complementary question related especially to Poland, because here in the Czech Republic and in Slovakia, our culture policy proposed by the Ministries of Culture, it's very oriented towards artistic excellence, and it doesn't have any clear ideological topics or missions. But in Poland, as far as I know, in 2012, the strategy of the development of social capital was adopted by the ministry, and I think that all these topics like norms and behavioral models and collective identity are very much stressed in the discourse of Polish cultural policy. So is it somehow touching your work as well? Is it a topic for you, or?
Well, not for now, but I see this is happening since the Law and Justice just won the elections 3 years ago. This is happening on the national level. So every national grosz which is sent in our country, it's going now, from the main festivals, from the main venues, to the right side of the barricade. So for the churches, for, I don't know, some crazy stuff like they had this idea that a big boat with the written Independency of Poland name on it, the boat, really big boat, is gonna go through the whole Mediterranean Sea and visit every country there, and to give a play about the Polish medieval times. Yeah, this was the great idea from our politics, and they were about to give them 2 million zlotys, which is a lot of money for us. So you see, thankfully we've got this, very complex system of redistribution of money. So it's a national level, then we've got the regional, and then cities, and then subventions, and etc., which saves us a lot of trouble with that. But as we are saying, we've got now elections going on, which is great. Yeah, the frequency is good for now. But we'll see what happens next. If the regions and the city is going to change its politics, then it's going to, they're going to iron us, everybody, because this is what this party is doing, and this is great from the other point of view, because they notice that culture is very important for people, and they notice that theater is existing in the public debate, which is great for us because they are giving us, the free publicity. You can only take this PR and, do more theater for it. And this was, I was going to ask you, how about here? How is the theater in the public debate here? Because for us, it's, With every scandal now, like first was the girl on death, then was Clown Fa, and so on. Like we are, you know, like having this debate on the higher level, which I like very much. So.
I don't know if Maciej wants to react about Czech situation.
I think theater is not the reason to discuss it in global society in Czech Republic. Like, it has not so big impact. Like
Yeah,
in
but
Polish
that's
situation.
thinking about impact, because impact is small. We've got only 300 people here, so it's like very little for, you know, like mass media now. But what I'm talking about is like, do your prime ministers and your minister of culture are seeing that theater might be a weapon, you know, might be weaponized for them, for this side?
I'm not sure, like, I think the biggest phenomenon of what was happening with theater, or what was the reason to discuss theater, was in May, when in Brno International Festival was a piece by Oliver Frljić, again like you, and it was the biggest debate about
It was
theater.
very exceptional case.
So we need a
I
scandal.
would say that they are not aware of the political power of theater. Although we have also this experience from the communist time when it was in all our region ideologically used for propaganda. Beata, how is your relation with your city and region? And
Yes, it's a hard situation. What's happening now in Hungary? I don't know, somehow our theater, I'm working there since 2015, and I feel that is a huge responsibility as a dramaturg, but also as so can I be a civil person, for example, to say I was invited to read some texts, there was an event, they put these stones in memory of the deported Jews. And or any other event, it's like I'm not going there as representing the theater, I'm going there as myself, but is there a civil need? Because this is a small city. After a while, the people who go into the theater, they know who we are and what we make, so it's connected.
so you feel it as kind of burden, this your role of somebody who is employed in public theater. Do I understand correctly?
I don't know, a burden that's important or very necessary.
You don't understand the word, or
I guess.
how to say something what is an obstacle for you, something what makes your life more difficult.
I don't know. No, it's difficult. It's just it's hard to define where is that point. Because sometimes I feel some kind of pressure because of all the things are happening in Hungarian everyday life, and yes, somehow in the theater as we have all kinds of discussions, what kind of performances, what kind of events, who to invite and who not to invite, and what kind of stuff. There I don't feel this. I don't know, but this is what I call pretty strange situation because, yes, from where it comes, this kind of pressure feeling, because then we cannot say everything is normal. If it would be normal, then yes, this pressure would have came from somewhere. So it's...
Okay, thank you. We have last 5 minutes. Yeah.
I want something to add because I think in Slovakia it's really unusual that people like administrators, as our administrator, build their programs on culture as a priority number one, and he did it and he won it. So I think it's a very important step for our region, and I think if we are talking about the whole country and about ruling parties of our land, so none of them had culture as a priority number one in their vote campaign, vote programs. Never.
Of course, we see it here after all elections that to find a Minister of Culture, a candidate from any of the parties, it's a huge problem. So, and it's the last ministry which gets the minister. Everyone wants other resources. We have last 5 minutes, so maybe I open for the audience if there are some questions for our panelists. No? If not, we will finish here. We will have again a 15 minutes break, and then we will start with the third panel. Thank you so much for your opinions and information. And see you at 4:30.
Pleasure to see you here. The title of the panel is Question of Social Impact in Experimental and Applied Theatre, and I hope that by this panel we will include a different perspective to this symposium, the perspective of the current theatre activities, which often overlap the traditional concept of theatre, both institutionally and aesthetically, and we will talk about theatre activities, which include elements of the so-called applied theatre, but also about the activities which deal with topics of political and social issues. I think that what's most important in this meeting is to introduce and discuss the situation of theatre and its capacity to influence public affairs in the current turbulent political situation in Central Europe. So I'm very happy that we can host this lovely variety of speakers from all the 4 countries. So please let me briefly introduce our hosts, our guests. And let's start with Mr. Michal Hába, who is sitting right there, who is a graduate of the Theatre Academy in Prague, who is mainly a director, actor and performer in both independent and state-run theatres. He is the head of the traveling company, the Horse and Motor Theatre. He is an artistic director of the Lachende Bastion Theatre, but he also collaborated with theatres such as Goose on the String in Brno or Klitsperovo Divadlo in Hradec Králové in Bohemia. He also, interestingly, he assisted to David Dušan Pařízek, the Czech director who is very much successful in Austria and Germany. And Michal Hába also has this experience of assisting to Frank Kastorf in Volksbühne. He also was doing internship in Gorki Theater in Berlin, and he was a participant of the Berliner Theatertreffen International Forum in 2016. So welcome. Next to Michal Hába sits Jakub Čermák, who is a director and actor, director of the company Depressive Children Long for Money, is the English translation of the title. And he's a dramaturg of the Prague so-called independent scene, Venuše ve Švehlovce, and you will be lucky to visit this venue tonight. Jakub Čermák studied at FAMU and as an actor he worked with several Czech and international directors. His work as a director focuses on updating rewritings of classical drama. And he does in the Czech context, quite innovative projects which involve principles of immersive theatre, and I'm sure he will tell you more about that. So, hello, welcome, thank you for coming. Next to Jakub is sitting Bence Biro, who is a dramaturg from Hungary, who is working both on venues of the independent scene, such as Trafo, House of Contemporary Art, Emut Theatre, or Urani Incubator House, I'm sorry for my Hungarian, and in city theatres. So there is this two dimensions of what independent scene and city theatres such as Kantona Josef Theatre, who are very famous in the Czech Republic because they come to Pilsen Festival, very often, and also in Pesti Theatre. Bence Biro also cooperated work with such directors as Arpad Schilling, and he also works with Daniel de Kováč or Zita Sentecky. So, hello, welcome Bence. And next to Bence is sitting Mrs. Iveta Škripková, who is a director of the theatre, let me tell it in English correctly, of the puppet theatre on the crossroads in Banská Bystrica. And Mrs. Škripková Iveta is also the director of the International Theatre Festival Puppet Bystrica. Iveta is also a dramaturg and scriptwriter, also a director, and she has produced dramatic and literary work for children and adults. But in this panel, she is mostly because of her work, which could be called by this fashionable term applied theatre, because Iveta is involved in projects which aim at educating teenagers, university students, and Iveta is one of the rare personalities in Czechoslovak, I think, theatre sphere, who is promoting gender issues in theatre. So I very much look forward to hearing more about that. Welcome. And of course, last but not least, let me welcome Bartosz Frackowiak. Bartek is the Deputy Director of Biennale Warszawa, and in particular of the Scena Prezentacije, which is the part. This is a new institution founded and supported by the city of Warsaw, and I'm also very eager to hear more about that. Bartek, in the years 2014 until 17, he worked as the Deputy Director of the Polish Theatre in Bydgoszcz. He's a director, dramaturg, curator, producer, graduated in cultural studies, and with his dramaturgical curatorial team, he created a new program of Festival DRAMplan, which was running recently, I think in October, was it? Of course, yeah. Bartek is also co-founder and program director of the Herbal Art Foundation, Visual and Performing Arts Foundation. So he's a person which is not only active in the field of theatre, but also on the border with visual and performing arts. So that's even more interesting. So hello Bartek, welcome. And after this a bit longer introduction, let me ask the first question. We have discussed yesterday and today, of course, the political situation in Europe, in Central Europe. We've discussed the ecological crisis, especially yesterday. So perhaps we can agree on that we are living in a quite turbulent time. And I wonder, what's the role of theatre in all this? What the theatre should do in this situation in the world, in Central Europe, and in Slovakia, in Poland, in Hungary, and in the Czech Republic. So that's my first question. please feel free to answer, whoever feel like that.
Hello.
Lovely.
It's an ecological catastrophe here.
Great.
Never mind, no? It looks like... I don't know if I can answer this question, but my opinion is that...
Exactly, your opinion, please.
My opinion, yes. My opinion is that theater is not really so strong to really solve something. I think generally you can say theater can like push or kick in some problem, like provoke in the good sense, not just to make some scandal, but provoke to thinking. Or generally the art can just show the different point of view. So it's the start of discussion, and it's the goal what theater can do, and it's also what we can, or what we try to do with, for example, like in the Bastille. The only sentence what I can say about that is we try to lift topics which are not in the common discourse. So that's the answer. I don't think so that theater can be so strong that really it makes the revolution, but it can start it.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Maybe I would say that now we are sitting here in this hall, and after all these discussions, and of course we will read the newspaper really deeply and so on, so we can say we are in some kind of chaotic and turbulent times. On the other side, I'm not sure that the common public really read the situation the same way, and I think that's something what can theater do. In the meaning that we can try to focus some topics in front of the audience. And I think that also the independent theater has much more possibilities in this field, because we are much faster. Mostly we are not long-term financed, and there is a lot of disadvantages related to this, but there is also some possibilities what we can use, and we can change it into our benefits. So I think that's the communication with the people, and also sometimes I don't know what is the experience of the people from the city theaters and so on, but sometimes we reach the audience. People, they don't go to the theaters regularly because it's too much posh for them or something like that. It's too much high culture, and we can communicate it with them in some similar level, but still we are not really this beautiful theater with formal dress and so on and so on.
Thanks.
Yes, usually or in a good situation, theater can be a place for democracy. I mean, on the stage there are different arguments, and they can argue with each other, and in a good situation we can argue from the stage with the audience as well. So it's a very important institution for the democracy, I think. And yeah, there is that our times can be also good. I mean, the political situation, because some Hungarian directors said that it can be the best time to live and do theater, because there are so many topics coming from the everyday life and from politics and stuff like this. That so there is theater can be a good way to discuss this, and there are a lot of things to say, I think.
To me, theater is a regular human activity, very necessary in our life, which cultivate our mind and emotion, bring us the new science like aesthetic, and also open for us a very important question, taboo question. We, thanks to theater, we analyze why we are happy and unhappy, and also who we are as a human being and where we come.
Yeah, to answer this question, I think we should somehow come back to the institution of the theater itself, because it's very hard to answer this question. For me, it's very hard generally, every theater or every kind of institution, because what I think, and I here share, I think the opinion with Michal, that theater itself, as well as public cultural institutions, are not so strong. Like, if you restrict yourself to the realm of culture and you think about yourself only as a cultural worker or arts worker or producer, then it is not enough. So for me, it is very important to define my position, my political position, and also try to be active, not only in the field of aesthetics, but to really have a link and connection to so-called reality. So what I mean, for example, it's to just give one example. Our last performance, it was called Modern Slavery. It was about 2 cases of human trafficking for forced labor. One very current one, that was happening in Warsaw between 2014 and autumn 2017, where middleman was delivering workers, mostly from Ukraine, to more than 70 top Warsaw restaurants. And and he was accused of human trafficking for forced labor. And it was blackmailing these people, forcing them to sign blank pages that appeared to be loan contracts, and created some kind of fictional penalties to create a debt bondage with them. So what we did, we just made an investigation, because we couldn't get access to the files during the formal investigation. So we started our own investigation, meeting with people, collaborating with La Strada, the Foundation Against Slavery and Human Trafficking, with the Center for Migration Research, with the Association of Legal Intervention, so with NGOs that are active in the field of migration, human rights, and human trafficking, also helping them with their activities. So that's one of the ideas of Biennale Warszawa, to combine 3 fields in almost every project. So to combine art and culture with research and theory, and with politics and activism. And then if you have these 3 components, then can strengthen each other. And I find this way of thinking about a theater in an expanded field of art somehow more efficient in relation to the question of the impact. Okay, I will stop now.
Thank you for moderating yourself. But that's all very interesting. I would like to come back to Michal, who said that his aim is to, if I understood correctly, is to, also Jakub mentioned it, to open or to raise issues which are not present in the public debate, maybe are marginalized or forgotten. And I wonder, of course, I'm a committed theater person in a theoretical way, so I believe that theater is important. That's why I devoted many years to it. But also I'm really frightened in a way about the real social impact of theater. And I do believe that it does have a potential to innovate the public discourse, to bring new topics. And we have, perhaps all our nations have this experience of a very important role of theatre before 1989. But I don't see, I think we can agree on that, for sure in the Czech Republic the position of theatre has changed a lot after the 1989, and perhaps in the last decade the political or social function of theatre is coming back in a way with the new generation of theatre makers. But still I wonder whether theatre has any chance to do a real difference, to really change or innovate the public discourse in a significant way. And I wonder what you think about that. How do you feel about this in your countries? And I wonder if you see any way how to make the theatre more relevant in this way, in a way how to, you know, challenge the stereotypes, challenge the public debate.
It's a good question. I think we all feel very miserable that the theatre today, maybe in our countries, it means these Visegrad countries, especially if it's a conference of these countries, that the theatre is not so political strength, and it's of course question why. I was thinking about the last panel. I think Tomáš said that in Germany there will come people for experiment, crazy things, and etc., and not in all theaters. Maybe it's also about the regional theaters, but maybe the answer is about the different development of theaters in both sides of the Iron Curtain. There's one book called Not Just a Mirror. It's about political theater today, and Florian Malzacher there speaks about, like, really shortly, that in East it was the game with the hidden messages. On the West it was the game with provocation. So the best was when the audience leaving with the slamming the doors of the theater. And I think that's the trouble, that we didn't really change from this game with hidden messages. It's the trouble in regional theaters, maybe because in the bigger cities it's okay, there is some new elite audience, but in this theater it's all the time it's fight, like how to keep the old generation, so-called old generation, but how to catch the new one. And I think it's the trouble is that there is we don't know how to really change this discourse, this game with hidden messages and with the provocation. On the other side, I think that it's also the thing that, and it's connected with the question, do we have what we wanted, right? I don't think so, but it's not really in our common discourse to speak about that. I think that from Czech theaters there is only Divadlo now, for example, when Mati from Divadlo is here, what actually use the word capitalism on the stage. Nobody speaks about capitalism, and in the circle I think that the capitalism is also why to speak about capitalism, because of the ecological catastrophe. So I don't hear about these topics in Czech theater, maybe in independent also I can't see everything, but this is for me the trouble and also the answer what's going on.
Thank you. Any other ideas?
I see also one important topic in this way, what the people generally understand under the theatre, or what we here understand. And if we are talking about regions and about local people there, so they have really no access to something like that. I think it's important that some of the city theaters and regional theaters are brave enough that sometimes they are really trying to start with, of course, something what will be maybe not so complicated, but for example what will be on the edge between the drama and documentary theater, or something what is related to the region. I think that's one of strategy what is really working very well, because if you are dealing with the topic what is local and what is special, for example, so the people welcome and they are interested. My last production was made in Plzeň and partly for Olomouc, for the festival Days of Jewish Culture, and it was about former Jewish cemetery what was founded in Prostějov, and now Jewish community wants to make here a memorial, and local people were very strictly against. And I did a production about this, what is exactly something between drama, something what has some elements of documentary theater. And we performed not in Prostějov yet, maybe once, and maybe we will be really killed by the local people. It's possible. But we did it in Olomouc, which is really just like, I don't know, 30 kilometers or something like that. And we had there also a part of local people. They were super interested and they wanted that we can perform it there. And even they didn't agree with everything what was on the stage, so there was after this some discussion, what thing I think was really great for me and for them as well. So I think that's some strategy, but very often we speak with some representative of some local theaters, so they say, okay, the people will not come, they are not really interested, and I understand that, for example, to start something which will be for them about system and very complicated and not related to the topics what they feel here in this moment. Then probably the success will not be reached. But I think there are some ways, but of course they will take some time, and we need to brave people on the side of the local culture managers, but also on the side of the artist, of course.
Thanks. In fact, I have read that just 2 or 3% from common public are interested in the theater. It is terrible, terrible few. And
3% in this country, I think.
Yes, yes. And so we can do 2 or 3%. So it is terrible, terrible number. So what we can do, we can attract people. For example, from the beginning, we are puppet theater, and we started with the project for toddlers, because it is some kind of education also with parents, which came with toddlers to the theater. And we can just give up, not give up. And to do project, a long time project, constantly creative project, speak with public, open communication. And maybe it is very skeptical from my side, but I think that theater is some anachronical in this time.
I don't understand.
Yeah, I'm also working on TIA, theater in education performances. So I'm working with youngsters and disabled people as well. And in that way, I can really see the impact of theater. So theater can change lives if they are watching this. On the bigger scale, the Hungarian theater, I don't think it's brave enough nowadays. It's very hard to reach the audience with performances about society or about politics. I don't really think there is the so-called classical political theater now in Hungary. But yeah, I agree with you, because this summer our Prime Minister declared a cultural war in Hungary. So yeah, we should keep up the fight, I guess.
Thank you. What about the Polish view?
Yeah. What is interesting about the book you mentioned by Florian Malzacher, he writes criticizing also critical theater, so the theater that is focused on the construction, revealing like hidden phenomena and hidden things. But it is not enough. Like that, what is important is first to make a statement, and second to start thinking about alternatives again. Like, because we are like living, and that's my I think that's my thought about the current situation. But one of the problems with right-wing turn and what we are now experiencing in our countries is somehow the restriction of our political imagination. So we don't have like alternative programs. We don't have like alternative institutional models. We lack really like alternative way of thinking about ecology, about economics, things like this. So but also about democracy, because like there are different models of democracy. The representational democracy is one of the possibilities. So discussing like democracy as a topic, and why maybe this kind of representational democracy is not enough, and that maybe what we are now experiencing is some kind of an answer to what neoliberalism did, what like this kind of democracy did. So to see, for example, interconnections between capitalism and right-wing term that are not so obvious, I think, in public debate is extremely important. But even more important is working on like alternatives and new models, and I think that theater has its means to do it. So if you think about theater as a strongly social situation, you can really practice, test, experience, like imagine different ways of organizing community, for example. So in my thinking, there's like two lines: the critical line and the line which is more like about projecting or designing new alternatives are somehow interwoven. And I think that it's really important to have this dialectic interrelation between these two lines.
Yes, thank you very much for mentioning the term vision, because I think this is very important. And my feeling about the Czech discourse, about the Czech public debate, is that we quite a lot care about the present, we do care about the past, especially in the last 10 years, the so-called coming to terms with the past is the thing which is going on theatre, on the stage, in the literature, in the media, which I find very good. But what about the vision? Is the theatre in the Czech Republic offering some vision, like a social vision? I'm not sure, and I find it really exciting. And may I ask you, Bartek, to introduce your project, your vision of possibilities, how to design the whole society? Could you tell us a bit more about your vision?
So very like complex questions.
I know.
So I can just give some maybe some concrete examples, because in one of the performances we produced was devoted to solidarity movement. It was called Solidarity First Reconstruction and a New Project. It was somehow coming back to the historical event of the first assembly of Solidarity Trade Union in Oliva in Gdańsk, where the discussion about self-management, self-organizing were important part of the whole debate, like ecological issues in relation to self-management. So you can see that we had some kind of very progressive moment and very progressive program. That is now now you can find this program in Rojava, for example, in Kurdistan, that is really like trying to create a horizontal democracy. That was the idea of the first solidarity. It was of course later corrupted and changed, but that was the initial moment. So it was a great project. So we, Paweł Wodziński was the director of this performance, reconstructed, taking as a base transcriptions of that assembly and of speech that is assembly. He reconstructed that moment, discussing possibilities of horizontal democracy, self-management, self-organizing, and of course also problems that are associated with these new models. Because our institution is not like active only in the field of theater and performing arts, but also in the field of like visual arts, discourse and things like this. And we also organize the so-called biennale or biennial. And the idea for the next edition is to focus on new institutions, like new institutional models in different fields. So, for example, what we do, we collaborate with Marwa Arsanios, who is a Lebanese artist, on something that is called Convention of Women Farmers. The idea is to invite representatives of women eco-feminist collectives from Punjab in India, from Chiapas, from Bekaa Valley, from Rojava, from Morocco, to have a kind of a gathering to discuss their knowledge about plants, about farming, about seeds. But somehow it is to construct some kind of transnational relationships and try to construct some kind of transnational assembly that can be alternative to different kinds of assemblies based on the idea of nation, for example. So that just two very concrete examples.
Yeah. And I wonder, what is your experience so far about the attitude of the institutions, of the authorities who finance you to these challenges, ideological challenges? So yeah.
So again, me.
Sorry. Yes.
Okay. I said a little bit about this yesterday, but I don't know if everybody was at the meeting at the Theatre Institute. But this institution is quite new. It was established in 2017 in November, but it is based on a legal form of a former repertoire theatre, that's scena prezentacji, and we still formally we are that scena prezentacji Biennale Warszawa is just a kind of a name for the program. And the idea of the city, because it was established, the theatre was established in the late 70s, it was led by one man for more than 30 years, Romuald Scheidt, and the theatre lost its value. And the city didn't know what to do with the institution. And finally they decided to organize a competition and trying to establish a new institutional model. So the institution that is not only theater, but is active in these three fields, announcing it very politically. So it was in the announcement, it was said that this institution should work for inclusion of different minor groups, sexual in relation to sexual orientation, ethnic identity, and so on. It was really unusual. And the government, local government, is from Civic Platform. So we are now the city council is from Civic Platform. So this is Liberal Party, not Law and Justice. So what I guess is that their idea was somehow to have left-wing institution that could be a counterpoint to the identitarian nationalist politics on the far right. So it is a kind of political play, of course, in this field. So more or less, to be honest, our relationships with our authorities, so with our so-called organizer, are very well, are really good. But today we've got elections, so we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow.
But you mentioned that this case is exceptional in Poland.
I said that this kind of announcement and this kind of really politicized announcement in this kind of formal situation is quite unusual. There are there are some theaters who declare that they are political theaters, Teatr Powszechny, for example. But of course these are different strategies. But we need different strategies. We need different programs, different strategies. One of the problems of Warsaw scene is that many institutions are overproducing things, and it means that they're becoming very similar to each other. And if we want to fight our, what is to be fight and our struggles, we need different programs with different approaches and different strategies that can somehow deal with capitalism and far right groups and movements.
Thank you. I think it's a very interesting case because the innovation comes from the institution. And I wonder, in your experience, in your countries, have you ever met the situation that the innovation, the invitation to challenge the discourse comes from the institution, from the authority? Is it something you are familiar with in other countries, in your countries? Or do you have any? I'm not clear, right? Yes, Ministry of Culture, regional authorities, etc. Or do you have any your again vision or your idea how to change the institutional setting so that the innovation can arrive?
I think that we don't need the authority for our thinking, so we need their money. I would like to mention something because from our side. So I think that people live in isolated island. Teachers and pupils, for example, it is our public. They have own circle and they move in the circle. Parents in the same circle. Independent area move also around themselves. Theater, it is the same because there are drama theater, there are puppeteers play for puppeteers, drama theater for drama theater. So our issue is to cross this island, this our allowance, and so break the norms, a convention, and open something. But we need mediator. We need somebody from this area who defends this issue, who defend or understand this idea, and operate in this inside in this island. So it is our cooperator, our mediator, and with these people from a different area, we create this para-theater project for public, from children, for teenage and university. But we need the people from the other area, not from our.
And when you are speaking of mediators, whom specifically you mean?
It is there are teachers, for example, from college or primary school, from university, professors, or for example, leaders of community, from a community center, or women's leaders from independent women's organization, or for example, from seniors, some kind of individuality from this area.
Thank you. Any other thoughts on the topics we mentioned?
Yeah, I mean, our ministry is changing the system always. I mean, every year there's a change, and they're changing the directors, they are changing the financial system, but I can tell you it's a very bad change. I mean, it's very hard to deal with it. And about visions, about your previous question, I think it's such a big chaos around us. I think it's really hard to understand the present even, and yeah, it's a very big chaos in the head of the people. So they are attacked by the public media in every minute, and it's a big work to understand and deal with the present. And if we are thinking about visions, with Arpad Schilling I was made a performance Pavel mentioned in Teatr Powszechny, and at the end of the performance we are mentioning a vision, but it's also really dark. So I really can't see now any chance for a better change.
So what you proposed already, your mission now is to stay, to do what you do, not to, but at the same time you're pessimistic. You don't see any happy ending.
I'm very pessimistic now, but I think I'm doing what I have to do. But for example, in my generation, the theater directors, as I see, are not dealing with the future at all, and not dealing with the present at all. They are just telling stories about the past, and they are dealing with classical plays, but they are really bored about politics and society, so they are not dealing with these topics.
And you're speaking about your peers of your generation, directors?
Yes.
And may I ask you directly now, I wonder if you see the situation so pessimistic, and of course we all know that the situation in Hungary is very critical, I would say. Do you think that the option of emigration in between artists is becoming urgent, or has it already been urgent? Because, of course, Arpad Schilling, for instance, is working abroad more than in Hungary. So do you think that this emigration of artists, which we know from the Czech history after 1948, 68, this 8 years again, do you think that it is already being in process, or it's coming, or?
It's already done.
It's already
I think. I mean, half of my friends are living abroad, and these big Hungarian names, theater directors like Kornél Mundruczó, or Viktor Bodó, or Arpad Schilling, or Balázs Kobalik in the opera field, they are not working in Hungary anymore. So since it was the last time in 2010, I think, when Arpad Schilling made a performance in Hungary. So they are only working abroad, and and our ministry says it's all right. They can do it if they want.
Yeah, and what could we do? I mean, what could the neighboring countries do to help you?
That's a really good question.
You know, I really wonder, because of course in the past there were at least some petitions to, you know, to express some support. I know it's been going on that Hungarian critics were asking for help, like Turkish academics a few years ago. So I wonder, I don't know, are there any ways we can actually change or help or do anything?
Yeah, I could say give us money and space, but then you are not transparent, or if you are transparent, our government would say that we are getting foreign money and we are in the army of George Soros. So it's and they are just banning to do it. So I don't know, but I will think about it.
Let us know. Okay.
Can I just? I think that this kind of significant thing, because I was expected if we meet on the stage here like Czech, Slovaks and Polish and Hungarian, that about politics in theater, it will be the clash of the reality of Hungary, like when it's just, okay, let's go and speak about just freedom of speech, because so far it's really big shit. And in Czech it's like still somehow good, it's not so bad. Maybe it's also because, I don't know, our Prime Minister has not so strong ideology how to change the state, like Orbán, for example, because it's the thing, because Babiš has no strong ideology, no conservative ideology. It's just
it's a different kind of ideology.
Yeah, it's a different situation. But so we are in this task actually, and for me it's here one thing what to speak about. It's about that we all the time want to speak about symptoms of the times, like about the rise of nationalism. But on the other side, we are a little bit blind to see where it comes from. And I think let's go back to, okay, we are living in democracy, but it's also connected with some type of capitalism and also the past, of course. Like, but the problem is that we are all the time trying to mirroring the reality. We are trying to do metaphor of reality, but I think that we have to much more try to read the reality like a metaphor, you know. And maybe it's the way how to not get in this ends like it's Orbán state, and we have to just look at the system in which we live, and it's again the question: do we have what we get, what we wanted? Because maybe it's not the thing. Actually, what Bartek told about, I have read this morning interview with Jan Tesař, who is the person who really nice analyzed Czech Munich complex, right? The paradox is that I have read it in the newspaper of our Prime Minister, actually, but still there was the free space for his thinking. And he's very well known about that. He he doesn't think that it's the victory, the 89, the Velvet Revolution and all that stuff, because he was really left all the time. And his answer is what exactly Bartek said. It's that the only thing what can protect us against the race of totalitarianism is the citizen activity, much bigger citizen activity, and not just the representative democracy. Is it right? I don't know. Yes, thanks. So,
okay.
Just my reaction.
Thank you. I get a feeling that we should open the floor. What do you think? But of course, if you would like to present your work more, I'm totally free to use the videos. Now it's time, if you like, or we can directly talk to. Yeah, okay. So please, we are really eager to hear what you think about what we are talking about. So the microphone, the lady coming to give you the microphone should be coming. Můžeme poprosit slečnu s mikrofonem, jestli by tady mohla přijít, jak jsme se domlouvali. Je čas.
A může mít fousy.
So please tell us what you think, and you have a very exceptional opportunity to ask these inspiring people what you are interested in. Okay, so thank you.
Raz, dva, já jsem zvukař, to
So please, if you are interested, just raise your hand. I know that there were quite many ideas, and maybe we need to think a bit about it. Okay, there is the first question.
I would like just to ask that whether you were not sometimes facing the reproach or question whether there can be really artistic theater that can at the same time have some issue, be involved in politics and social issues, because I think there is a tacit agreement among our theater people, and maybe it's true, I don't know, and, that there is no really artistic theater.
For example, there is one program what is called DRAMplan, and that's exactly this kind of cooperation between independent groups and between local theaters. And of course, it's founded and supported by some governmental money. But it's exactly that these theaters, they are maybe not brave, or they have no capacity for trying to find something specific, local, and so on. So they can apply together with some independent groups in this competition, and then I don't know now if it's 10 groups per 2 years or something like that, but there is produced really a lot of projects, like some kind of off program for these theaters. And that's, for example, if we are talking about the alternative independent scene and so on. So I think that's something what is here in Czech Republic missing a lot, not only in the regions but Prague as well, because sometimes I have the feeling that we are not talking about theater, but theater group number 1 and theater group number 2, and I think that this touch, it's our own big, not problem, but really some kind of deficit we have to face.
Yeah, that's very interesting, and the topic of isolation is repeating, like in Slovakia and here. And I wonder, to me, actually, the more we use the terms like independent scene or alternative scene, I wonder if these words are actually of use. Maybe we should redefine our thinking about theatre and also about institutions. Maybe it would be much more helpful and effective then. Who knows? Any other ideas? Questions? No? Everyone is exhausted? Okay, I do understand.
Sorry, I just wanted to add regarding to the previous thing that I think it's a good idea to cooperate with independent companies. We started not cooperation, it's as we are a repertoire theater, and there are a lot of type of apples, or how it's called, it's combined ticket selling. And in this repertoire we have hodnota Soboč. He has a show performance, and they play it in our repertoire. And also we invite smaller independent companies to play occasionally in our theatre. And we also have a discussion how can we otherwise cooperate with independent field.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sorry, but that's happening. So theaters are inviting ready-made performances from the independent theater. It can happen, but they don't cooperate, that they are not making performances together.
Yeah, that's something else indeed. Okay, so any other ideas? Yeah, the first row, okay. And please, Mike.
Right here. Hello, I'm sorry, it's not about money. I know we all need money, and not just because we live in capitalism, you know, they need money elsewhere as well. But I thought this discussion is about the impact of theatre, especially independent theatre, on society. So I want to go back to art, if it's okay, and to something that Jakub said, which I agree with. Because you said that sometimes you see so-called political productions about the state of people or women, etc., which you dislike or maybe even hate, and you don't think they are very good. So I don't really have a question, but I hope all your productions are or will be uncompromising in terms of their intelligence. But sometimes we also see political productions which are more pretty pictures, that they are more aesthetically beautiful than instead of having more meaning. And my question is, maybe the general audience prefers to see something beautiful and political, although it's maybe not quite understandable, and they think, oh, there are those people there, they move in a beautiful way, and the lighting and the colors and the words are a bit strange, but it's probably political theatre and it's great. So do you think we should be, or would you be tolerant of these performances, these productions, or do you think you agree with me that the meaning or the message, as Michal mentioned, is more important? And I must tell you, I'm surprised Michal did not mention his favorite echo chamber about people of the same opinion, you know, sticking together and saying, oh, yes, yes, we know what they are talking about, and that's the right thing. So,
thank you very
wants
much.
to pick it up?
Okay. Any responses to this? These two topics, actually.
I would say that, you know, from my point of view, I totally agree that the message is the most important, but I would also say that I know some popular political shows that can also be like interesting. Like it's maybe they are not like, you know, big shows and big events with beautiful like light and everything, but they're quite popular and quite simple, like not, you know, very intellectual or something sophisticated, but very simple. And I see them also as important and playing important role in like changing like minds or mindset of the audience. So I think it can be both. What I think is important is that we should develop our skills, our tools to analyze, like, you know, political subjects, society, like reality, whatever that word means. Because I think that very often it is something that really lacks in the the toolbox of contemporary theater directors. And then you can see something that is too simplified, or so it's important to really develop these skills and these tools that should be as important as like the theatrical artistic workshop.
I would like to just maybe react on the remaining of echo chamber or social bubble. Right, it can happen to us actually, theater makers, that we are doing some theater for people with the same opinion like us, and it happens. I think it happens very often, you know. And it's also maybe if my English is better, I can quote Theodor Adorno. It's the jargon of authenticity. And the thing is about like the statement makes to the speaker that he's so serious that without his personality it doesn't work, and it can happen in our work, that we are talking to the people with the same opinion, and we are talking to, don't be fascist. Yeah, and you are not fascist, of course. So it's the trouble. It happens to political theater today, I think, very often, and also the thing that sometimes it looks political, but it's just a nice picture, or it's aesthetical shit, actually. Yeah. So we have to think about it.
Yeah, I agree. And the aim would be to speak to an audience which don't think the same like we do, but it's really hard to reach that audience, because maybe they are not coming in the theater or not coming in that theater where we work. So it's it's always a problem. Well, maybe we can discuss about it a bit.
I agree, but for example, exactly, I think that Michal and his theater of horse and motor, Divadlo, koně a motora, so I think it's a good example, because you make quite a lot of tournée in some really places where you wouldn't expect some kind of theater. I think the way is to try to find the audience, and also I think in the first guests, they were here on the stage, so they spoke about that, how to leave the historical buildings of National Theatre and try to find some classes or something like that where to perform. I think that's one of the way. For the questions also how to deal with these kinds of performance, I'm not sure if I'm able to answer, but from my point of view as a artist, if I'm preparing anything, so there is a moment when I put myself the question, is it necessary to do it as a theater play, as performance? Because I saw really a lot of things, they were super interesting and deep, but I had a feeling maybe radio play would be better, or book or something like that. And then I'm upset, then I'm not satisfied as spectator, because I expect of course all levels of the artistic expression what I can receive. And it's also my goal when I'm doing some kind of documentary theater or something like that, that I don't want to make only documentary, but also the theater. Maybe it sounds too much simple, sorry for that, but I'm not a complicated person, and that's the rule what I try to follow.
Okay, next question. I would have a question, because speaking about reaching other audience, maybe if you have considered like choosing maybe other form, because I have experience with immersive theater, and it is very, very popular between and other audiences that we are used to. So if you have an experience with that, and what do you think about it? Because it really has a huge potential, as we can see in US and Great Britain and everything like that. So what do you think about using maybe other more attractive forms for expressing the politic topics you're talking about?
So,
Thanks.
if I can add, I agree absolutely, and not only this immersive, but some kind of interactivity or site-specific. That's something what really worked a lot for us. And in the first phase of our group, so we made really mostly just some kind of site-specific performances, and we reach people exactly as I spoke about it in the beginning. They don't go to the theater regularly. And they were, and for example, we were performing at the time. It was really like more drama and not some kind of interesting genre. This Visit of Old Lady by Friedrich Dürrenmatt, and we did it in some ruin of former First Republic villa from 30s. And the owner, it was some kind of company, and they said, okay, you can do it here, but once we want to have one performance for our employee. And we were really a little scared because there were some worker or something like that. Some people, they really don't go in the theater at all. And we were like provoking on a lot of levels. And the people were very open, and also we discussed with them later other things. And I think sometimes that's also what Michal said, is social bubble where we are, and we think that the people, they are not in Prague and they are not educated and so on, so they will not understand or they will be not interested. But with my group, we did now, for example, some kind of extended cinema, and we take the classical horror story, The Fall of the House of Usher by Edgar Allan Poe, and we made it for a small festival in former Sudeten. It's this Czech-German borderline, where there's a lot of social issue and so on. And we made a kind of movie what was filmed in exactly around the Jeseník and the cities where it held. And on the stage there is this movie and actors are making some kind of dubbing, this synchronized voices and sounds and so on. And we were also thinking how many people will come or something like that, and we did it in a local city theater, and it was full house, and the people were very open, and they were also very open about some critical points what we had there about this Czech-German relationship, social issues, and so on. So I think it's not true that the people are conservative and they are really very open to anything what can bring them some kind of experience. And I think immersive theater is exactly something where the people could be touched much more. Because, yeah, the theater, there was also said it's a little anachronistic today. And that's true, we must face that, but if we are alone with the spectator in some kind of set and he can react of us, it's something what the television still can't offer to him, and it's our advantage.
Okay. I think that it is normal things to attract people by site-specific happening or immersive theater. In the gender issue, we used to do it. For example, we play in the shopping center about domestic violence, or we have project Silent Witness, and we play in the fountain in the middle in the Košice. So it is very helpful things, attract the people about some issues.
Thank you. I'm afraid that our time is up. So if there is the very urgent question, let's take it. I can't see anyone. Can you see anyone? Okay, so it's time to finish. Thank you very much indeed for the lovely discussion. It was a pleasure. Thank you. Thank you all, and have a good evening. Bye.
Just the final word, which you shouldn't take as a formal thank you, but I would like to really thank you that you survived this afternoon in the darkness. I hope that you are not going home or to the theater show we are going to see tonight with dark thoughts. I hope that you've got a lot of food for your thoughts and for some future collaborations or inspirations or solidarity or whatever in the Visegrad region. And with most of you, we will continue in Slovakia. We will deepen our discussions and thoughts. And for the rest, goodbye, and see you again on some other occasion dealing with theater politics, public values, and the Central European region. Thank you. Goodbye.